What if Anakin told Yoda about Palpatine instead of Mace Windu? What would happen then? Let's find out. So in this timeline, everything will be the same as in the original timeline until Anakin walks out of Palpatine's office after learning that he is Sidious. We pick up with Anakin standing at the edge of the hangar deck of the Republic Executive Building, wondering what he should do next. So let's begin. Anakin stood motionless at the edge of the hangar deck, his mind reeling from the revelation. Chancellor Palpatine, his mentor and friend, was the Sith Lord they had been searching for. The weight of this knowledge pressed down on him, and he found himself wishing desperately for Obi-Wan's guidance. Almost instinctively, Anakin reached for his comlink, his fingers quickly inputting a familiar frequency. The device crackled to life, but instead of Obi-Wan's reassuring voice, he heard Commander Cody's clipped tones. General Skywalker, this is Commander Cody. General Kenobi is currently engaged in battle with Grievous. Is there something I can assist you with? Anakin's voice caught in his throat. It's nothing, Commander. Thank you. He entered the transmission abruptly, feeling more alone than ever. At this point, the young Jedi Knight found himself being drawn to the edge of the hangar deck. Coruscant sprawled before him, a tapestry of lights and shadows as the sun was beginning its descent. The sky was ablaze with hues of orange and purple, the fading light catching on the countless gleaming surfaces of the cityscape. Speeders darted between towering structures, like fireflies in a metal forest. It was a view that usually calmed him, but now it only emphasized the magnitude of his predicament. Anakin's anxiety only grew. He had to tell someone, had to act. His first instinct was to go to Master Windu, to reveal to him everything he knew. But as he prepared to leave, doubt crept in. What would happen if he told Master Windu? Would he even believe him? Would he act rashly? Because keep in mind that Anakin still didn't want Palpatine dead. And so the consequences of telling Master Windu seemed to pile up in his mind. A weak, stressed growl escaped Anakin's lips as he stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. His mechanical hand gripped the hangar deck edge, steadying himself as he fought to regain his composure. Then, unbidden, another thought surfaced. Master Yoda, the wisest of the Jedi, the one being who might truly understand the gravity of the situation, Anakin thought. With unconscious thought, Anakin's fingers were moving again, inputting Master Yoda's comlink frequency. Light years away, in the lush forest world of Kashyyyk, a small device chirped instantly. The sound cut through the humid air, a discordant note amidst the natural symphony of the Wookiee homeworld. But soon enough, the chirping comlink caught the attention of Commander Gree, who quickly retrieved it and brought it to Master Yoda. The diminutive Jedi Master activated the device, his large eyes narrowing in concentration. Master Yoda, Anakin began as soon as the comlink was answered. Skywalker, something to say, have you? Yoda's gravelly voice came through, tinged with concern as he sensed the turmoil in Anakin's tone. Master Yoda, Anakin began, his voice trembling slightly. I need to tell you something important. Calm yourself, you must. Anakin, Yoda advised, his words measured and soothing. What troubles you? Anakin took a deep breath, steeling himself. Master, I've discovered something. Darth Sidious, the Sith they've been looking for, is Chancellor Palpatine. He told me himself. A heavy silence fell over the communication. The ambient sounds of Kashyyyk's forest seemed to fade away as Yoda processed the shocking information. Certain of this, are you? He asked, his voice low and serious. Yes, Master, Anakin replied firmly. I'm certain. He knows the ways of the Force. He's been trained to use the dark side. Yoda closed his eyes, focusing intently on the Force, trying to make sense of this revelation. Why and how did Palpatine reveal this to you, Anakin? Anakin hesitated, his inner conflict evident even through the comlink. And Yoda, recalling their earlier conversation about Anakin's troubling visions, spoke again, his tone gentle but probing. Connected to your visions of suffering, is this? Anakin didn't bother questioning how Yoda made that connection. Yes, Anakin admitted reluctantly. Palpatine said I could learn to stop these visions through the dark side. A trap it is, Skywalker, Yoda immediately declared, his voice gaining urgency. Reveal himself, Palpatine has. His final move, soon to come, it must be. The Jedi Master paused, realization dawning. Want the Jedi to come for him, he does. Part of his plan, this all is. The culmination of a millennium of Sith planning, I fear. What should I do, Master? Anakin asked, desperation creeping into his voice. Yoda's response was firm. To the temple you must go. Return soon, I will. Near Palpatine, you must not go again, Anakin. Seek to manipulate you, he does. Talk to the Council, I will. You must not worry, Skywalker. We will face this as we have faced everything else. As the conversation unfolded, the atmosphere on both walls grew heavy with tension. On Kashyyyk, the once peaceful forest seemed to hold its breath, as if the nature itself sensed the weight of the moment. On Coruscant, the fading light of day cast long shadows across the cityscape, mirroring the growing darkness that threatened to engulf the Republic. The air in the hangar deck felt thick and oppressive to Anakin, weighing down on him as he grappled with the enormity of the situation and the choices before him. Soon after his conversation with Yoda, Anakin piloted his starfighter back to the Jedi Temple. As he approached, he could sense a shift in the atmosphere. a tension that hadn't been there when he left. As Anakin's ship touched down in the temple hangar, he saw Master Windu waiting for him, his stern face more serious or concerned than usual. "Skywalker," Mace began as Anakin approached. "Master Yoda informed us of what you learned about Palpatine." Anakin nodded, his face a mix of relief and apprehension. "Are you certain about this?" Mace asked him. "Yes, Master," Anakin replied firmly. "What do we need to do now? What did Master Yoda advise?" Mace sighed, his shoulders tense. "Master Yoda has advised us not to take any action until he returns to Coruscant. He believes that Palpatine might want us to attack him." Mace finished. Anakin looked away, frustration evident in his posture. Mace turned, gazing out at the Coruscant skyline alongside Anakin. "I sense a plot to destroy the Jedi, Skywalker," Mace said, his voice low and grave. "We've been blind, and our blindness has let the dark side corrupt the entire galaxy. Tell me, Skywalker, what exactly did Palpatine say to you?" Anakin hesitated, and Mace's eyes narrowed. "This has something to do with your visions, doesn't it?" Realizing that Yoda must have shared this information with Mace, Anakin nodded. "Yes, Master." Mace didn't probe further, but his expression grew even more serious. "We should have been more suspicious of Palpatine's unusual interest in you, Skywalker. He's always been there. It's clear now that he wanted to use you to further some part of his plan." The Jedi Master placed a hand on Anakin's shoulder, his touch firm but not unkind. "Whatever the Sith has told you, Anakin, remember this. He is lying, just as he lied to his apprentice, Maul and Dooku. Everyone is a pawn to him. Through the dark side, nothing good can be achieved. It is a path of destruction and suffering, no matter what promises it might offer." Anakin nodded at Master Windu's words, but his eyes betrayed his lingering confusion and inner turmoil. Meanwhile, on Kashyyyk, Master Yoda wasted no time in preparing for his departure. The ancient Jedi Master turned to Luminara and Dooley, who had been coordinating the efforts on Kashyyyk alongside him. "Master Luminara," Yoda said, "in charge of our forces here, you are now. To Coruscant, I must return immediately. Something has happened." Luminara bowed respectfully. She of course sensed the desperation in Yoda's voice. "Of course, Master Yoda. Whatever you require." The conversation soon ended, and Master Yoda boarded his small starfighter, departing immediately for Coruscant. Meanwhile, on Utapau, Obi-Wan had emerged victorious. Following this, Commander Cody approached him with news. "General Kenobi," Cody reported, "General Skywalker attempted contact with you earlier. He seemed distressed." Hearing this, concern etched itself across Obi-Wan's face. Without hesitation, he activated his comlink, calling Anakin back. By this point, Anakin was in the council chamber with Mace Windu. Anakin's comlink chirped. He realized it was Obi-Wan and answered it, looking out at the other master's earshots. "Anakin," Obi-Wan's voice came through, dazed with worry. "What happened? Cody told me you tried contacting." Anakin took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Master, there's something you need to know. Chancellor Palpatine, he's the Sith Lord we've been looking for. He's Darth Sidious. He told me himself." Obi-Wan immediately replied, his tone one of shock and concern. "Anakin, are you certain?" "Yes, Master," Anakin replied. "I've informed Master Yoda and he's on his way back to Coruscant now." Obi-Wan processed this information quickly, his mind racing. "I understand. I'll also soon return to Coruscant, Anakin. We will face this together. You shouldn't worry." Hearing Obi-Wan say this made Anakin feel a little less suffocated by everything. But soon, this transmission ended, and Obi-Wan, just like Yoda, made preparations to return to Coruscant after assigning Cody to do what was needed on Utapau. And as this was happening, Ahsoka Tano arrived on Coruscant with Darth Maul. And Ahsoka, immediately upon arriving on Coruscant, contacted Anakin, telling him that they needed to talk. And soon enough, Ahsoka spoke with Anakin in the temple. "Anakin, I need to tell you something important. It's something Maul told me before we captured him," she began. "What is it, Ahsoka?" Anakin asked. Ahsoka took a deep breath and said the following. "Maul told me that Darth Sidious has been manipulating you for years, trying to turn you to the dark side. He told me that the war on Mandalore, he orchestrated that to bring you there to kill him." He seemed certain about it, Anakin. To Ahsoka's surprise, Anakin did not react with surprise or denial. Instead, he simply closed his eyes, a pained expression crossing his face. When he opened them again, they were filled with a mix of sadness and resolve. "I know, Ahsoka," he said softly. "There's something I need to tell you too." Over the next few minutes, Anakin recounted everything that had transpired. Everything about Palpatine's revelation, and how Palpatine is indeed Darth Sidious, proving Maul right. But before they could discuss the situation any longer, a temple guard approached Anakin. "Knight Skywalker," he said, bowing slightly. "The council has called an emergency meeting. Your presence is requested." "I'll be on my way," Anakin said. And even though only Anakin's presence was requested, Anakin insisted that Ahsoka come with him. And given everything that was happening, Ahsoka did not argue against him. And so, the two of them quickly made their way to the council chamber. The council room buzzed with activity as they entered. The council members present on Coruscant, including Obi-Wan and Yoda who had arrived back, sat on their chairs. Meanwhile, holographic projections of the absent members flickered in the remaining seats. Master Yoda, his expression more serious than Anakin had ever seen, called the meeting to order. "Grave news we have received," he began. "Revealed himself, the Sith Lord has. Chancellor Palpatine, Darth Sidious, is." A ripple of shock passed through the room, even among those who had already been informed. Mace Windu leaned forward, his hands clasped tightly. "We've been blind to this threat for too long. The dark side had clouded everything. He must act decisively but carefully. We don't know what the Sith has planned." The council chamber then fell into a tense silence as Jedi Masters and Anakin contemplated the situation. Mace Windu again broke the silence, his voice carrying their collective concern. "We must consider Palpatine's grand strategy. He controls the Senate, the courts, the Grand Army of the Republic answers to him, and even the citizens of the galaxy trust him implicitly." He paused, his eyes scanning the room before continuing. "Our reputation, on the other hand, is not what it once was. It's possible that by revealing his identity to Anakin, Palpatine wanted us to attack him. This could be a ploy to turn the galaxy against the Order, painting us as the aggressor and himself as the victim, thereby securing more power." Yoda nodded slowly. "And of Count Dooku we must speak. In league with Palpatine, he must have been. Orchestrated Dooku's death, Palpatine did. And no longer useful, Dooku became. Shares the power the Sith do not." As Yoda spoke those final words, his gaze seemed to linger on Anakin for a moment, and the young Jedi felt as if the statement was somehow directed at him. A warning, perhaps. Anakin then spoke. "Masters, there's something else we need to consider," he began, his voice steady despite the confusion within. "We know that Count Dooku was behind the commissioning of the clone army. Why did the Chancellor's plans tie into the inhibitor chips that Fives talked about?" The mention of Fives caused a ripple of unease through the room. Anakin continued. "It is one of those chips that caused Tup to kill one of us for no reason. What if it's part of a larger conspiracy, like Fives said?" Yoda's ears twitched as he contemplated this possibility. A troubling thought, this is. The atmosphere in the chamber grew even heavier as the Jedi considered the implications. The clone army, their allies, if they were to become their executioners, the Jedi Order would be surrounded. The council chamber remained tense as the Jedi considered their next moves. Master Plo Koon, his hologram flickering slightly, spoke up. "Perhaps we should consider removing these inhibitor chips from the clones." Mace Windu shook his head. "Such a large-scale operation would be impractical. Beyond that, it might alert Palpatine to our knowledge about the chips." At this point, Shakti spoke up. "I can return to Kamino and investigate further. We need more information before we can act decisively." "Very well, Master Shakti," Yoda said to this. The hologram of Kiadi then spoke from Magito, his storm one of urgency. "The question remains, what should we do now? If Palpatine, Sidious, does indeed control the Separatist alliance as well, even with the death of Grievous, he can still manipulate the remaining leaders to keep the war going for as long as he needs, thereby allowing him to hold on to his emergency powers." Obi-Wan stepped forward at this point, his face set with determination. "We may have an opportunity to capture the remaining Separatist leaders," he began, drawing the attention of every council member. "We've discovered the location of the remaining Separatist leaders," he said. The atmosphere of the chamber shifted, a spark of hope igniting amidst attention. Obi-Wan continued, his voice steady and clear. "They're on a planet known as Mustafar. We were able to recover this information from one of Grievous's Magna Guards. After my confrontation with Grievous, we managed to salvage one of these droids and activate their memory units in a controlled environment." Obi-Wan then paused, making sure he had everyone's attention before delving into the details. "The droid's memory banks contain both audio and video data. We recovered recordings of Grievous himself, stating clearly that he was sending the Separatist leadership to the Mustafar system for their protection. I've already dispatched a contingent of clone troopers to Mustafar. If all goes according to plan, we may soon have the Separatist leadership in our custody, thereby removing Sidious's ability to control the Alliance." Mace Windu leaned forward. With Grievous eliminated, Dooku dead, and the Separatist Council captured, Palpatine will have no one left to perpetuate this war. This could be the key to removing his emergency powers, following which he would have less control over the Republic. Yoda remained silent, his eyes half closed in deep contemplation. The ancient Jedi Master seemed to be looking beyond the immediate victory, considering the greater implications and potential pitfalls of their situation. Anakin spoke again at this point, his tone one of optimism as he said this. "If we manage to capture the Separatist leaders, we would have an easier time presenting our case before the Senate. We could put Palpatine on trial." Ahsoka, standing beside her former master, added her voice to the discussion. "There's more we can do," she said, her eyes bright with determination. "Maul is aware of Palpatine's dual identity. He was his apprentice after all. His testimony could also provide additional corroboration," she said as she looked at Anakin. Yoda's eyes opened at this point, and he nodded slowly. Confronting Palpatine in his own arena indeed the best option that might be. The discussions went on further, but not much else was gleaned from these discussions. So a little while after this, the clone forces arrived on Mustafar. The battle on Mustafar unfolded swiftly and decisively. Clone troopers led by Commander Cody descended upon the volcanic planet with precision and overwhelming force. The Separatist leaders, caught off guard by the sudden assault, found themselves cornered in their fortified base. The clash between the clones and the battle droids was intense. Blaster fire lit up the dark, smoky landscapes as both sides engaged in fierce combat. The clones' superior tactics and adaptability quickly gave them the upper hand against the rigid programming of the droids. The even battle droids fell in droves, their thin frames offering little resistance to the clones' accurate shots. The more formidable B-2 battle droids put up a stronger fight, their reinforced armor withstanding initial volleys, but even they quickly succumbed to the concentrated fire and well-placed thermal detonators. Droidekas rolled into defensive positions, their shield generators humming as they unleashed a barrage of blaster fire. Clone troopers responded with coordinated efforts, some drawing the droids' attention, while others fight to attack from behind where the shields were the weakest. As the battle raged, elite clone commandos infiltrated the base. They encountered tactical droids coordinating the defense, quickly dispatching them with the EMP grenades that short-circuited their complex circuitry. Within hours, the clone forces had penetrated the inner sanctum where the Separatist Council covered. Newt Gunray, Wat Tambor, and others found themselves surrounded, with no choice but to surrender. And so they were swiftly detained and prepared for transport to Coruscant. As all this was happening, Master Yoda took a moment to address the Order as a whole. He retreated to a secure communication chamber within the temple, his small frame dwarfed by the array of holographic equipment. With a few deft movements, he activated a transmission that would reach every single Jedi across the galaxy. And so the image of the Jedi Master flickered to life in countless locations, from the furthest reaches of the Outer Rim to the heart of Coruscant itself. The Jedi paused on their duties, turning their attention to the unexpected message from their Grand Master. To all Jedi, vital information I must impart, Yoda began. A time of great change approaching it is. Prepare yourselves, you must, for revelations that may shake the very foundations of our order. He paused, his large eyes seeming to look directly at each Jedi receiving the transmission. Trust in the Force, we must. Guide us through the coming storm, it will. As the transmission concluded, a separate encoded message was sent to all Jedi. This communication cited the need for a strategic debriefing now that the major Separatist leaders had been captured, calling all Jedi back to Coruscant for this debriefing. However, the true reason was not a debriefing, but rather to separate the Jedi from potentially compromised clones. This reason remained unstated. Upon receiving this message, Jedi Knights and Masters across the galaxy began making preparations to return to the temple. Ships changed course, fighters were recalled, and ground operations were handed over to clone commanders. The sudden recall raised eyebrows among some clone officers, but years of working alongside the Jedi had taught them not to question such decisions openly. Along with this, Master Yoda made another crucial decision, this time to protect the Order's most vulnerable members. Recognizing the potential for danger, he ordered the evacuation of all younglings from all the Jedi temples to somewhere safe. And so, under the guise of a training exercise, the younglings, along with a few select masters and caretaker droids, were secretly transported to a planet known as Danalore. This world, strong in the light side of the Force, was difficult to access, but star maps, present in the hidden section of the Jedi archives, did point to where this planet lay. And using these star maps, the younglings were quickly transported away from potential danger. This operation was carried out swiftly and efficiently, leveraging the considerable resources the Jedi had at their disposal. Within days, the children were safely escorted to Danalore, far away from the brewing storm on Coruscant. And as this was happening, the Separatist leaders were brought to Coruscant. Their presence added another crucial piece in the growing body of evidence against Chancellor Palpatine. And with all these preparations in place, the Jedi Council convened to finalize their strategy. They decided to confront the issue head-on, planning to address the Senate directly. Anakin Skywalker, present at these discussions, found himself torn. The fear of losing Padme still gnawed at him, but the time he had spent reflecting on recent events had brought clarity to his mind, clarity which he did not receive in the original timeline. He began to see through Palpatine's manipulations, realizing that had he chose to support Palpatine, he might have brought about the destruction of the Jedi Order, including the destruction of Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. So soon enough, the Jedi stood before the Senate. The grand convocation chamber of the Galactic Senate buzzed with anticipation. The massive rotunda, with its thousands of repulsor pods arranged in centric circles, was filled to capacity. Senators from every corner of the galaxy had gathered, their diverse forms and colorful attire creating a tapestry of galactic representation. At the center of it all, the Chancellor's podium rose majestically. Chancellor Palpatine stood there, his face a mask of benevolent leadership, flanked by his advisors and the Vice Chair. The Senate bought in which Master Yoda, Mace Windu, and some other members of the High Council, including Anakin, stood, then detached from its mooring, floating to the central space. Their faces were grave, in clear contrast to the celebratory mood that had permeated the chamber moments before as Palpatine announced the imminent end of the war. Chancellor Palpatine's voice echoed through the chamber. "Honored Senators, esteemed Jedi Masters, what news do you bring us?" Master Yoda stepped forward, his small frame belying the power of his presence. "News of victory we have. With the death of Grievous, Count Dooku, and the capture of Separatist leadership, the Clone Wars effectively over, it is." A wave of cheers again swept through the Senate chamber. Senators embraced one another, their joy palpable. Palpatine raised his hands, a benevolent smile on his face. "This is indeed wonderful news. May peace bless us all in the coming days. I am glad that I can finally relinquish the emergency powers that were granted to me," Palpatine said, because he knew he'd had to give those powers up to maintain his benevolent mask. As the cheers subsided, Master Yoda's gravelly voice cut through the celebration. "Unfortunately, more to say we have," he said. The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to the Jedi Master. "Information we have gathered over the years. Behind Count Dooku, there was another, a figure known as Sidious, leading the Separatists from the shadows." Murmurs of confusion rippled through the Senate. Yoda gestured, and several pods containing the captured Separatist leaders moved forward. One by one, Newt Gunray, Wat Tambor, and others testified. Their voices trembled as they spoke of the mysterious Sith Lord, whose true identity remained unknown even to them. They testified that their actions had been guided by Sidious, alongside Dooku and Grievous. And as the Separatist leaders were led away, Mace Windu stepped forward. "We have reason to believe that this Sidious also held influence within the Republic Senate," he said. Gasps and shouts of outrage filled the chamber. Chancellor Palpatine's face remained a mask of concern as he leaned forward. "Master Yoda, do you know the identity of this Sidious?" he asked. Yoda's eyes narrowed slightly, his gaze fixing on Palpatine. "Share what we know with the Senate, we will." Yoda then looked at Anakin, and Anakin stepped forward, and he said the following. "Honored Senators, I come before you today with a heavy heart. Chancellor Palpatine, the man I considered a mentor and friend, told me himself that he is the Sith Lord Darth Sidious." The Senate erupted in chaos. Shouts of disbelief and anger echoed through the chamber. Palpatine's face, however, remained impassive, but those closest to him could see a flicker of something dangerous in his eyes. As Anakin continued his testimony, the atmosphere in the Senate chamber transformed. The earlier jubilation evaporated, replaced by a mix of shock, fear, and growing anger among many. And as the hero of the Clone Wars finished his testimony, the Senate chamber was awash with murmurs and heated discussions. The Jedi, seizing the moment, brought forth their next witness, Darth Maul, his appearance causing a ripple of shock among the senators. And there were clones around him, all pointing their blasters directly at the Sith. Maul's eyes darted around wildly, a mixture of rage and fear evident in his expression. When prompted to speak, he suddenly erupted into a frenzied shout. "He is Sidious. The Chancellor is the Sith Lord." His voice cracked with emotion, the fear of his former master still palpable after all these years. "He used me, discarded me, but I know the truth. He's lying to all of you." The outburst sent shockwaves through the assembly. Senators exchanged worried glances, unsure of what to make of this new development. The Jedi remained stoic, allowing Maul's words to sink in. As the commotion began to die down, Chancellor Palpatine's calm voice cut through the noise. He stood in his pod, his demeanor composed and reassuring. "Honored colleagues," he began, his tone measured. "What we have witnessed here is deeply troubling, but I'm afraid it's based on misunderstandings and the ravings of a deranged individual." Palpatine gestured towards Maul, who was being led away. "This creature is clearly unstable. His accusations are baseless and born of madness." And then he turned his attention to Anakin. "As for General Skywalker, I fear he has misinterpreted our conversations. It's true that I advised him not to limit himself solely to Jedi teachings in his service to the Republic. I believe, and still do, that his potential could be fully realized by drawing from diverse sources of knowledge." The Chancellor's words seemed to calm some senators, who nodded in agreement. Palpatine continued. "I acknowledge that my mistrust of the Jedi Order was a mistake, one born from concerns over their growing political influence. For this I apologize." He paused, then addressed Anakin directly. "Tell me, General Skywalker, did I ever explicitly confirm to you that I was this Sidious?" All eyes turned to Anakin, or his holographic figure that was projected above him. After a moment of hesitation, Anakin reluctantly admitted, "No, you didn't directly confirm it." Palpatine spread his arms wide, his expression one of openness. "You see, my friends, this is all a grave misunderstanding. I invite the Jedi to my office, where we can discuss these matters privately and clear up any confusion. The Senate chamber erupted into discussions once more. While evidence presented by the Jedi had raised some serious questions, it clearly wasn't enough to fully convince the majority of senators. Many were swayed by Palpatine's calm demeanor and logical explanations. Plus, most of them only heard what they wanted to hear. Master Yoda then stepped forward, his expression inscrutable. "Presented our findings we have," he said. "Seek only the truth, we do. Accept the Chancellor's invitation for further discussion, we will." As the session came to a close, the atmosphere in the Senate was one of uncertainty and tension. Senators clustered in groups, debating the implications of what they had witnessed. The Jedi, meanwhile, prepared themselves for what promised to be a crucial meeting with the Chancellor. As for Palpatine, Chancellor Palpatine sat in his office as night fell on Coruscant, a mixture of frustration and anticipation coursing through him. His revelation to Anakin had been calculated to provoke an immediate, violent response from the Jedi. Instead, they had chosen a more measured approach, presenting their case to the Senate rather than confronting him directly. And beyond that, the capture of the separatist leaders were also unanticipated. This unexpected turn had denied him the opportunity to frame the Jedi as aggressors and justify Order 66 as a necessary defense against a coup. Despite the setback, however, Palpatine remained confident. The Jedi's restraint was merely a delay, not a derailment of his plans. And besides, that show the Jedi put on in the Senate, that would only give Palpatine more grounds to accuse them of treason later on. So Palpatine still believed that everything was going according to plan. This meeting, he decided, would provide the confrontation he sought. He would reveal his identity to the Jedi in this meeting, goading the Jedi to attack him. Their attack would be seen as treasonous, again giving him justification he needed to execute Order 66 and destroy the Jedi Order. And as for Anakin, well, Palpatine told himself that if he fails in manipulating Anakin to the dark side now, he would simply take Anakin prisoner and have his soul transfer into Anakin's body once he, Palpatine, rediscovers the ancient Sith technique of essence transfer. So Anakin too was not an issue here. But the presence of Master Yoda on Coruscant did add an element of risk. But Palpatine had prepared for this eventuality. In that effort, Palpatine had contacted Master Meta, instructing him to have a shuttle on standby, ready to fly up to Palpatine's office window upon his signal. Palpatine's plan was that, if he needed to escape the confrontation, he could simply shatter the window in his office and jump out into the shuttle that Master Meta would bring him to the window, just in case. As he waited, Palpatine's gaze swept across his office, taking in the Coruscant skyline visible through the large terrestrial window behind him. The office was quiet, the usual bustle of senatorial activity having long since died down. Palpatine had also dismissed his Red Guards, not minding any potential interference in the coming confrontation. He sensed the Jedi's arrival before he heard them, their presence in the Force unmistakable, and soon enough, the door to his office let open, admitting 4 Jedi Masters, Mace Windu, Shakti, Agent Kolar, and Master Yoda. To Palpatine's satisfaction, the Jedi were accompanied by several clone troopers from Mace Windu's 187th Legion. This unexpected addition played perfectly into his plans. As the Jedi positioned themselves before his desk, Palpatine noticed their subtle preparedness for conflict. The atmosphere in the office was charged with unspoken suspicion and barely contained hostility, yet Palpatine remained outwardly calm, leaning forward with his hands folded on the desk. "I trust we can resolve this unfortunate misunderstanding quickly." The tension in Palpatine's office escalated quickly as Jedi Masters and clone troopers faced him. After a brief exchange of words, Palpatine's demeanor began to shift. His cordial mask slipped away, revealing a sinister smile. "You've come here seeking answers," Palpatine said, his voice taking on a darker tone. "Very well. I am indeed the darkness that will destroy you. I am Darth Sidious," Palpatine said. Immediately upon hearing this, the Jedi Masters reacted instantly, igniting their lightsabers with a chorus of hums. Mace Windu stepped forward, his purple blade pointed at Palpatine. "In the name of the Galactic Senate of the Republic, you are under arrest, Chancellor." Palpatine's eyes flashed with malevolent glee. "Are you threatening me, Master Jedi?" "The Senate will decide your fate," Windu replied, firmly. "I am the Senate," Palpatine snarled. "Then we will decide your fate," Shakti interjected. At this point, Palpatine's lightsaber appeared in his hand, and then, less than a moment later, his crimson blade sprang to life with a menacing hiss. But then, instead of lunging at the Jedi, Palpatine then looked around at the clone troopers, certain of his victory. "Execute Order 66, he commanded, anticipation clear in his voice. But, to Palpatine's surprise, nothing happened. The clones stood motionless, their weapons pointed directly at him. 66 didn't have an effect on them. Confusion flashed across Palpatine's face. But without giving Palpatine time to think, the Jedi seized the moment. Mace Windu commanded the following. "Open fire," he said. And immediately as Mace Windu said this, the office erupted into chaos as blaster bolts filled the air, all aimed at Palpatine. In response, the Sith Lord's lightsaber became a blur of motion, a crimson tornado deflecting shots with inhuman speed and precision. The air crackled with energy as bolts ricocheted off his saber, scorching the walls and furniture of his opulent office. But as Palpatine was trying to defend himself, the Jedi moved swiftly to cut off any escape routes. Master Yoda positioned himself near the door, while Shakti and Agent Kolar flanked the sides of the room, and Mace Windu stood his ground, blocking the path to the large window that overlooked Coruscant. Despite the onslaught, Palpatine's moments were a terrifying display of skill and power. His lightsaber carved arcs of red light through the air, deflecting blaster bolts back at the clones. Several troopers fell, their armor smoking from direct hits. And then realizing the somewhat ineffectiveness of their blaster fire, Mace Windu called out, "Cease fire! All Jedi, engage!" he said. And then, as the clones moved to surround Palpatine, the 4 Jedi Masters sprang into action. The office erupted into a maelstrom of light and motion, lightsabers humming and clashing at breakneck speed. Palpatine's crimson blade became a whirlwind of death, moving so fast it left afterimages in the air. She spun and pivoted with inhuman agility, meeting each Jedi strike with precise, brutal counterattacks. His movements were a blur, his lightsaber seemingly everywhere at once. Mace Windu's wave-pad style of combat manifested as a storm of purple light, his blade striking from impossible angles. He pressed forward relentlessly, forcing Palpatine to constantly adjust his defenses. Shakti and Agent Kolar, meanwhile, moved in precise synchronization, their blades weaving a net of blue light around the Sith Lord. Master Yoda defied his small stature. He flipped and spun through the air, his lightsaber a constant streak of emerald as he struck at Palpatine from all directions. The ancient Jedi Master moved with a speed that belied his ears, matching Palpatine blow for blow. To combat his movements accelerated to a pace beyond normal perception. The clones unable to make sense of what was happening. Lightsaber blades clashed dozens of times per second, creating a constant, deafening hum punctuated by crackling energy. At one point, Palpatine snarled and lashed out with dark Sith lightning, forcing the Jedi to momentarily give ground. But they pressed forward again instantly, their blades deflecting the crackling energy back at the Sith Lord. The battle raged on, neither side able to gain a decisive advantage, at least immediately. Furniture was sliced to pieces, walls were scorched, and the floor became a maze of molten trenches. And then, in a moment of precise synchronicity, the Jedi's attacks aligned. Mace Windu locked blades with Palpatine, holding him in place for a crucial second. Shakti and Agent Kolar's simultaneous strikes forced Palpatine to overextend his defenses. And in that instant of vulnerability, Yoda struck. Moving faster than the eye could follow, the diminutive Jedi Master's blade flashed 3 times. Palpatine's scream of rage and pain was cut short as his arms and legs separated from his body and collapsed to the floor, defeated at last. So what had happened was that, in the background of everything, Master Shakti had gone to Kamino, and while she got there, after some negotiations of the aggressive variety with Lama Su told Shakti everything about the inhibitor chips. He told her that the chips were not of Kaminoan make, and that a Jedi named Tyrannus, who had overseen the clone army project after Sidious' communication, provided these chips to the Kaminoans, telling them that these chips would allow the clone army to go after rogue Jedi if need be, and that without these chips, Kaminoan conditioning would prevent the clones from acting against the Jedi, even if they went rogue. So quick side note, this was the truth. After killing Sidious, Dooku presented himself as Tyrannus to the Kaminoans, claiming that he was not a Jedi, and had told them to keep his involvement and that of the inhibitor chip's true purpose a secret, to avoid the risk of potential rogue Jedi finding out about them. And the Kaminoans believed Tyrannus, and Shakti could tell that Lama Su was not lying, and that they too had been tricked by the Sith, by Dooku. So soon after finding out about this, Shakti discussed with Lama Su the practicality of removing these chips from all the clones, and Lama Su confirmed that it would be very difficult to do, especially while keeping it a secret, given the sheer number of clones spread out across the galaxy. And so Shakti came up with a different plan. Shakti told Lama Su, or rather demanded, that the inhibitor chips be removed from the thousands of clone troopers currently present on Kamino. That wouldn't be hard to do. That seems very practical to do, she said. And Lama Su agreed. And soon enough, the inhibitor chips within the minds of thousands of clones, the ones on Kamino, were removed. And then Shakti and the rest of the council came up with a plan. The plan was to get these clones, the ones without the inhibitor chips, to Coruscant, and have them join Windu's 187th Legion of clone troopers. Since the war was ending, large number of clone troopers coming into Coruscant wouldn't be given much attention, the Jedi reasoned. And so, soon enough the plan was put into motion. Thousands of clone troopers, without these chips, fully loyal to the Jedi, were brought to Coruscant, and made part of the 187th Legion of clone troopers. And it was these clone troopers that Mace Windu took with him when the four Jedi Masters when they confront Palpatine. They knew that Palpatine would try to use these clones to execute the Jedi Masters, but Palpatine of course did not know that these ones lacked the inhibitor chips, and because of that, they stayed loyal to the Jedi and followed Mace Windu's orders. A simple oversight had cost Palpatine his entire plan, and the revenge of the Sith never came. And what would happen after this? Well, the war of course came to an end, and as for explaining their innocence to the Senate, well, in this timeline, the Jedi had multiple witnesses to corroborate their story. They also had Palpatine's lightsaber as evidence. So in this timeline, because of all this, after a long trial, the Jedi would be declared innocent, based on all the available evidence. So what would happen after this? Well, pretty soon Luke and Leia would be born, and Palpatine would stay alive and well, and then Anakin would realize that his visions of the future were only possible realities, and not absolutes. Following this, the Republic Senate and the Separatist Senate would enter into peace agreements, which were mostly in the Republic's favor, and the Jedi Order would continue to thrive. But they would be more vigilant, given how close they came to destruction. Okay, so that is it for this video. Thank you to CJ Russell, Lord Newt, Rufus Nelson IV, Aaron, Rashid, Yasmar Vinicius, Z Quick C1, and Daniel Bell for supporting me on Patreon, and thank you to Michael Sampson for becoming a channel member. And if you do want to support the channel, there is a link to my Patreon in the description where you can support the channel for $1 or more a month. Do check that out if you have the time. Anyways, goodbye, and may Chiari Mundi's words of wisdom be always with you.